Hey, I'm Bradley Denniston. This is Radium Records here in Hollywood, California. And today I get to take you on a really fun journey through stem mastering using only the StudioVerse plugin. For me, mastering can be a very technical and tedious process, but through the use of StudioVerse, I've found that it can be very creative. I want to show you how StudioVerse has helped me with my latest single, bring those good times back and bring in the creative flow back to the mastering process. Let's tap right in. We are working in Pro Tools today. We got all the stems loaded up, and the song that we're working on today is called Bring Those Good Times Back. And I chose this song because it's fresh, it's new, it's 2023, and it's got a little throwback vintage 60s, early 70s vibe to it. So I thought it'd be fun to give a little imprint to the song using StudioVerse and the different tools we got. So let's take a listen to the song at the chorus.
You got me feeling like I'm back home. Love me like we're still young. Lady love, don't lead me on. Got me humming like I'm Sam.
So that is the guts of what we are working with today. So now let me introduce you to StudioVerse and what this thing is made of. It is built into the StudioRack, so don't get confused by that. You have the AI search function, which will listen for the incoming signal. On this master bus, you could play it and it would listen to the song and it would give you recommendations for channel strips. Or you can use the search function here and just go mastering. Then you also have save function here where you can go in and save things. And you can also make an image, and it's just really nice because everything's very visual and it's easy to find stuff. It's easy to search, brand it, put your handle in there. And then you can also publish to StudioVerse. So you can publish my chain on StudioVerse, which is really awesome because it's a sharing platform where people can use your mastering chains, your snare drum settings, etc. The rack is very simple. You have all the different slots for the rack. You can add any effects right here. And that's about it. That's the whole setup for the StudioVerse. So now let's talk about adding this thing to the stems before we hit the master bus, which in stem mastering, we're really kind of mixing as well. It gives us a lot more flexibility because we have the individual elements in groups, so we can change and shift the tones and the colors. For example, let's start with the drums. I'm just gonna option drag the StudioRack down to the drums. And now we have StudioRack on the drums. Let's solo out the drums, and I'm gonna just type in vintage drums. And right away, you can see some legends in here. You got CLA stereo drums, open drums, Chris Tabron red drums, which sounds really good. And right away, you're gonna see the macros pop up, and in the rack, you can see what is in this chain. And there you go. You got the Aphex Vintage Oral Exciter. You have the Smack Attack, which is gonna give some smack to the drums, obviously. And like the red drums preset shows you, the Abbey Road Saturator, which is an awesome plugin. I love this plugin. So let's give it a listen. All right, that one really brightened up the drums, so I do want to turn off the Aphex Vintage Exciter. And I want to give it a little bit more bottom end, so instead of trying to tweak this preset, I think it's just good to go back and hit search again and try to find something different. Maybe Drum Bus by Jacques King. Let's check this one out. Now I like that a lot more. It gives it a little bit of control to the drums and we're not losing too much. It's not bringing too much brightness or anything like that. And let's check out what's in this rack. So you have the Shep's Omni channel, which is amazing. API 560, doing a little EQ stuff here, and a parallel split that has some parallel effects going on, which is a guitar stomp with some distortion, which could be really cool for a vintage tone, right? So you can really kind of dial in your own presets on each channel. For now, I'm gonna stick with this and let's move on to the bass.
Got me humming like I'm Sam.
Originally, I had the bass and the drums all going through the drum mix and master bus and then going to a master augs. So I'm going to kind of replicate that and marry those two together. So I've bussed these both to a D and B bus. And let's just open up StudioRack by option dragging it because it's the fastest way to do it. And let's just let this listen to the drums and bass together and see if it can give us some recommendations with the AI. And this is where this plugin can get really creative. It can give you something that you weren't really expecting or imagining, or maybe you're doing a remix on something. It's very, very creative and really fun to play with. And bam, we got some recommendations. So we have a new disco recommendation, which is really interesting. Drum group, so it listened to it really well. Break to modern, old drum break to modern. Let's try that out. So that R bass is really jamming on this plugin. So what I'm gonna do is back off the R bass just a touch. So let's back off that guy and let's take the bass down a little bit because now I feel like it's just pushing a little bit more into that. So let's hear that going through everything here. What I do want to get going here is the master bus itself. I just want to put something on it to help glue everything and give us some cohesion before we start really treating the individual elements. So let's go here and go to mastering and we will just search on the master bus. Now you could kind of pick your favorite engineer for this. This could help out, but I see a vintage boost. That sounds cool. Let's give it a shot.
Love me like we're still young. Lady luck don't lead me young. Got me humming like I'm Sam or Dave up on the dance floor. Love me like you did before.
I'm loving that. I just love how it pushed the vocals forward a little bit. It made them really star power sounding. And now let's try to just get a little more level out of this. So let's open up the rack and you can see that the L2 is last in the chain here. And we can start to push it to where it starts to break up and then I back off. That's usually how I get my limiter set. Another thing I want to say about setting a limiter is you probably want to go to the loudest part of the record before you set your limiter to where you really want it to be. So on this part, I'm going to go to the last chorus and we're going to set the threshold on the L2.
Can we bring those good times back?
That's sounding really cool. There's some like hair on it too, which I really love. And I think that's coming from the Abbey Road vinyl here, which is really fun. And of course, if you don't like a tonality for a certain plugin, you can always just get rid of that plugin and swap it out for something different. Or you can bypass it in and out and see what it's really doing.
Love me like we're still young. Lady luck don't lead me young. Got me humming like I'm Sam or Dave up on the dance floor. Love me like you did before.
So that's doing quite a bit, that vinyl, that Abbey Road vinyl. That's really pushing this crispy, kind of distorted harmonic character that really makes it sound vintage and vibey. So I'm really liking that. I might want to just tweak it a little bit. So before we go any further, I want to stop and talk about LUFs for a second and mastering for streaming services because it's so important every time we're making a record. Nowadays, we're shooting for Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, etc. One thing you got to keep in mind with LUFs is that they recommend on Spotify at a -14 LUFs level. I find that if you master for -14 LUFs, your record will not compete. I'm sorry, that's just not happening. So what I try to shoot for with anything that's going to be modern and competitive is around -8 LUFs to -5 LUFs. Now certain genres like EDM, really modern EDM, they'll go all the way up till -3 LUFs, even hotter. I don't really recommend that unless it's part of the genre. For this record, I'm hitting about -8, -7 on the hardest parts. So let's take a look at this, and this is a great tool as well from Waves, the WLM loudness meter. It has everything you need to measure loudness, true peak. Just check this plugin out.
Your back dress, trying to keep up with your energy.
Now for one of the best parts about the StudioVerse, and I see this as like the future of audio and the community behind mixing, mastering, production, the ability to share these presets, to build your own profile in the StudioVerse. This is the really fun part. It's the very social aspect of this all where everyone can learn and join in. So let's go through the process. I'm loving this master chain. So now I want to save it and I want to share it with you guys. All right, so we go to save up here and we're going to open up this little dialog box. Let's just call it Bradley Vintage Mastering. Okay. And then we can add tags. We can say mastering, bam. We can go master bus maybe. Yeah. So master bus, and we can put in vintage as well. Some ways for people to search, for you to search and keep track of what you're doing. I'm going to click a image, mastering. Bam. Makes this very visual, easy to find. The chain description, vintage mastering chain from Bradley Denniston's single, Bring Those Good Times Back. Now, really cool part about this is I can save this, but I can also publish this to StudioVerse. So I'm gonna hit public. So now it's available for you guys. You guys can grab it right now. I'm gonna hit save, and that's going to save the chain into StudioVerse. And anytime I open up StudioVerse, I wanna apply this same chain as a starting point to another vintage track that I'm working on. Very, very simple. Just go open it up, search it in the StudioVerse, and you're done. You can also check your profile at any time. You can go to your StudioVerse profile. This will open up my profile. So if you want to follow me, join me on the StudioVerse, here it is, Bradley Denniston at BradleyHD. You can also find all my social links here, and you guys can set this up as well. It's a great way to network, great way to connect with other artists, engineers, producers, and people making chains. And now you can see there is my chain. I can visit the chain here. This is like so much fun. I think this part of it is so dope. I wish every company would do this. And then you can drag and drop it directly into your StudioRack, or you can copy the link and I can go into Pro Tools. Let's open up the StudioRack and we can open up StudioVerse and just literally paste the chain here. Okay, bam, paste, enter, and there you go. You're gonna see it right away and you can open it up. And this will download it, it'll initiate it, everything. All right, now I'm gonna A/B it between the StudioVerse master that we've done and the stems just popped in.
Gave up on the dance floor, love me like you did before. Can we bring those good times back? Good.
All right, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Just drop your comments, questions, etc. I definitely can hear much more cohesion, glue, harmonic structure. It's a little bit wider. There's more depth to it, more punch. The fatness in the low end comes out. A little spit on the top and that vintage kind of texture on the vocals. They kind of pop out and come forward. Things jump out of the speaker more, right? So if you guys have any questions, of course, drop them in the comments. Grab StudioVerse. Oh, and don't forget to go support the song, listen to it, add it to your playlist. Bring Those Good Times Back. Bradley Denniston featuring Concept. Hope you guys really enjoyed this. And if you did, please share it, like it, comment, subscribe to the channel.